Some events, they do more than just mark a page in history. They completely tear the page out and force us all to start a brand new, really uncertain chapter. Today, we're going to dive into a conflict that feels both shockingly new and, at the same time, chillingly familiar.
Think about it. Just one date. A single moment in time that completely shifted the global landscape. It was like hearing distant thunder, but it wasn't from the clouds. It was the sound of war engines rolling across a frozen, desolate border in the middle of the night.
And that really brings us to the core question we're going to try and unpack here. Was this just a sudden act of aggression, a surprise move on the world's chessboard, or was it something else, the inevitable result of pressures that have been building up for decades? We're going to look at that initial shock and the deep, deep consequences that came after.
Okay, so to even begin to understand what happened, we have to go back to that winter. We need to explore the intent and the impact, right from the very first moves of this conflict.
It was just a profound shock, right? For everyone. A massive military force crossing into a sovereign country. The images we saw, they felt like ghosts from a past we all thought we'd left behind. It was a really stark reminder that history doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it circles back with a vengeance. But what happened after that initial shock? Well, it wasn't the quick ending that some people expected. Not at all. Instead, the whole world watched as this thing evolved into a brutal, drawn-out battle. A battle defined by an absolutely unimaginable cost and an unbreakable will to fight back. This slide here, it does a powerful job of showing you the sheer scale of the change. For centuries, Ukraine was known as the breadbasket of Europe, a land of incredible fertility and culture. And then, almost overnight, that entire identity was reforged in fire. It became a fortress. Its people weren't defined by what they grew anymore, but by what they refused to give up. And the physical toll it's just staggering. You have to remember, these weren't just names on a map. They were vibrant communities. Places like Mariupol and Bakhmut were absolutely teeming with life, with art, with families. And today, they're hollowed-out skeletons of concrete and steel, silent monuments to the pure destructive power of modern war.
And yet, when you look past the rubble and the headlines, the real story is one of human endurance. The focus starts to shift from military strategy to the individual person, to the shattered lives just trying to piece themselves back together, to the millions of refugees scattered all over the globe, and to this collective spirit that somehow, against all odds, just refuses to break.
But this conflict was never, ever going to be contained within its borders. Its shockwaves immediately started to ripple outward, setting off this global domino effect that has touched literally every continent.
Yeah, it became clear really fast this wasn't just a war between two nations. It was a crisis for the entire world. It just ignited a firestorm in global energy markets. It choked off critical food supplies from one of the world's most vital farming regions, messing up supply chains from Africa to Asia, and it cast this terrifying shadow of nuclear escalation over all of us. And this really goes to show how fragile our whole globalized system is. A blockade of grain silos in Odessa, that doesn't just stay in Odessa. It triggers price hikes for bread in Egypt. The weaponization of gas pipelines from Siberia has a direct impact on your heating bill in Germany or how much you pay for gas in America. The vibration from this one conflict is felt in every single corner of our interconnected world.
And then you have the question that's probably giving security experts nightmares. For the first time in history, one of the world's largest nuclear power facilities became part of an active war zone. It introduced this terrifying new variable into the whole calculus of war, one with potentially catastrophic consequences for the entire continent. But beneath all the geopolitical strategies and the economic crises, there is a much more fundamental casualty. Beyond the headlines about sanctions and strategy, there are the silent voices of this war. This slide, I think, it just captures the universal tragedy of it all. On one side of the border, you have a Ukrainian father doing whatever he can to shield his shivering kids from the bombs falling over their basement. And on the other side, a Russian mother just waiting by the phone for news of a son who was sent to the front lines, a son who might never come home. The pain of war doesn't care about flags. And that's the ultimate truth of this conflict, and really of any conflict. The ultimate casualty isn't territory or political influence, it's our shared humanity. You can redraw maps with ink on a piece of paper, But the real borders, the scars of loss and trauma, those are etched into the blood and memory of generations. So, where does that leave us? It feels like we're at the end of a chapter, but you just know this isn't the end of the story. The final pages of this are still unwritten, and it leaves the world with this eternal, agonizing question. As the seasons change, as the winter snow melts and gives way to spring, the whole world is asking, what now? When does this end? Is there any path left that leads back to a negotiating table, back to diplomacy? Or has the bridge between these two worlds just been burned for good? We tend to think of history as this relentless cycle of power and pain, dictated by leaders and generals. But maybe the final word doesn't actually belong to them. Maybe, in the end, it's not the generals who get to write the final chapter. It's the survivors. Their stories, those are the ones that will echo through time. And so we wanted to leave you with this image. A single sunflower, the national symbol of Ukraine, finding a way to grow right through the wreckage of war. It's a fragile, defiant symbol of life, of resilience, and maybe the enduring hope that even after the deepest, darkest winter, spring will eventually return.